So Colin, you started this morning really, I mean, it's a bit of a clarion call really, the need for change.
Yeah, there is a huge need for change, and that's because we're now aware of what actually is happening out there. We have the evidence to show that our seas are warming, our seas are becoming more acidic, our seas are losing their oxygen, our sea level is rising, so we know that this is happening, and to some extent we know why it's happening as well. And the consequences of continuing on this trajectory are really quite horrendous, and therefore what we've got to do is, now that we know, we've got to do something about it.
Big changes to our planet, that requires big changes in what we do.
Big changes in what we do, yes, and that's actually the big challenge, because it is about big changes about what we do, not only as individuals but as communities, and indeed at the wider country and international level. Because ultimately the situation is that as humans we are forcing the climate to change. We're forcing impacts on our marine systems. We're changing the biodiversity of our marine systems. And it is the human, the anthropogenic forcing that's doing it. And so only through changing what we are doing can we actually see some sort of remediation to the current trajectory.
Science has a big part to play in that, and you talked about an opportunity, 21 to 30, decade of ocean science for sustainable development.
Huge opportunities coming along in terms of the a process by which we can effect change, and that's the oceans, or the decade of ocean science. This is where we hope to bring together countries, we hope to bring together leaders, but most importantly we hope to bring together the scientists to leverage greater working together, greater resource, greater output that actually will allow us to have and make the difference, because we will have the evidence and we will understand better the pressure-state relationship such that we can manage the human activities and actually see a change in what happens.
And conveniently, I guess, in Scotland, we have the good news of the recent DTP, which is almost running in parallel.
It's fantastic that we have in Scotland this new doctoral training programme called SUPER. This is something which for us is a huge benefit, because what it means is, first of all, we're going to bring in young blood. We're going to bring in our new, our enthusiastic studentships, the people who actually are going to be able to take the evidence that we've got, to develop it and to run with it for the next 10, 20 years, because that's the time scale that we have to look at. For people who are moving towards the end of the career, like myself, we've established certain things. We've established that the seas are becoming more acidic. We've established that the seas are warming. What we haven't managed to do yet is to establish the pressure-state relationship, the human activities, how we can actually say that by changing this human activity, we'll have this impact. This is what we need at the next stage. But to some extent, we have done what is the slightly easier part. The difficult part now is the multidisciplinary, the socioeconomic aspects all coming together to ultimately help people to come to the decisions about how they live their lives and to make less use actually of the resources, to be less consuming, and ultimately to allow the environment to revert to a more long-term sustainable condition.
And of course this is not just about Scotland. You know, what we learn about Scotland has global impacts as well.
Absolutely. Scotland is looking at it from a Scottish perspective, but also Scotland, we're looking outwards. Scotland has always looked outwards, but as part of the UK, as part of the countries on the continental shelf, as part of contracting parties to the OSPAR Commission, North East Atlantic, but indeed as contributors to the world science, ocean science evidence base. We have information, and we need to take what we've developed with what colleagues all around the world have developed. We need to take all the different pieces of the jigsaw, join them together to produce the picture that will actually ultimately result in our politicians, our industry leaders realising that change has to occur. Not only those people, but also the everyday person, ourselves, the people who are actually making use of things, especially where we want to help in some of the small island states, some of the other communities, to improve their capacity to undertake the necessary research in their areas as well, so we truly get a global picture.
And you left us with 3 key messages.
I did indeed leave you 3 key messages. The first thing is of course, planet ocean rather than planet Earth. We could think about renaming it. We probably won't get very far, but actually because 70% of this Earth is covered in water. That's the first thing. The second thing is we know what we are doing. We understand that the temperatures are increasing in terms of our seas. They're becoming more acidic. We're deoxygenating aspects of our marine environment. We are seeing sea level rise. We are affecting marine biodiversity. But we know it. So therefore, it is time for action. It's time for us to come together as a marine science community, Scotland, UK, European, globally, to come together as this community, to leverage the necessary resource to allow us to actually present to the global community the situation that's happening. We have several advantages. We have this decade of ocean science coming up. We have the World Ocean Assessment coming out in 2020, which will hopefully present some of the information in a very clear form. But also back at home, we are going to be producing Scotland's Marine Atlas 2 in 2020 as well. So from the local to the global, we have this opportunity, and I hope that we really grasp it and make a difference.